It worked.
It worked.
Hey, everybody. We are live. Welcome. Uh, we did it. I was wanting to use that countdown. So, to our millions of fans in the world, welcome to everybody. This is episode number 4. I'm Adam with Zembruski with Hospiamo. It's my brother Matt with Agile Game Changers. We've got Mike White here from the University of Connecticut, the Executive Director of Dining Services. We are going to jump into it. We are going to try to keep this at a half hour, 30 minutes. Our first 3, we did not succeed. We hit 40 minutes and then an hour and 40 minutes and then 1 hour. But that's okay. That's what editing is for. Bro, hi.
Hello. Thank you all. Welcome to the world. Thank you all for being here. We have no idea. There could be millions or billions of people watching this live right now or on replay.
I'm tracking it here. We're approaching 1 billion, so it's like 900 some million. That's all.
We're gonna hit it. We're gonna hit it. We just invite your friends. Invite your friends. We're gonna crack the number.
So there's a couple people that we invite to be on here. We got Derek Farley that might be joining us, and also Dave Waldman. Derek Farley runs Derek Farley Public Relations. He is Hospiamo's PR agency of record. And Dave Waldman is an impact investor based in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I am based. And Matt's up in Massachusetts. And let's jump right in. How's that sound? Yep. So the first topic is typically how I explain how I am connected with our special guest. Mike knows what's coming. But Mike and I have known each other for I would say a very long time. And this is how we know each other. I promised Mike that I wouldn't keep it up there for very long, but this is from 1989. We went to high school together at Stonington High School, Pawcatuck, Mystic, Connecticut. Miss Stonington. And that's how I know Mike. So I'm going to go back to a much better picture of you and of me. Although you kept your hair, I chose not to.
It's coming. It's coming.
So, Mike, thanks, man. We obviously known each other for a long time, but we have a theme in our life and career, which is hospitality service. We both went to the University of Connecticut also. I only lasted 2 years. I ended up dropping out after 2 years, so I cannot call myself an official Husky, but I am in my heart. But you stayed, and you did quite well, and you started working at the University of Connecticut and have risen to quite an impressive level there. And we're going to talk about the scope of your operation at the University of Connecticut. We're going to talk about the recent award or certificate that you achieved to be the first university of its kind to achieve it in the United States. We're going to talk about the path that you took and the kind of the impactful people and the learning and education that you received early on in your career. We're going to talk about waste, which I think is fascinating. We're going to talk about not only food waste, but we're going to look under the hood of an operation. And I will start, and we're going to talk about some of your mentors. We're going to take questions from the audience, and we will get going. So from a perspective, Mike, for all you listening here, so to put it in perspective, the average restaurant might do about $1 million, maybe $2 million in a busy restaurant, $2 million in annual revenues. Mike runs dining services at the University of Connecticut, the entire University of Connecticut. Last year, Mike and his team served 3.7 million meals to a lot of college students. On campus, there's 8+ dining halls, and I might get some of this wrong, Mike, but correct me. But you have it's throughout the state in multiple locations also throughout the state. There's $26 million in labor in your operation, 500 plus full-time employees. You depend on over 1,000 working students to work in your operation. It's essentially the equivalent of an $80 million a year restaurant. So to put that in perspective, in multiple locations. So I am floored by the scope of your operation. And what inspired this conversation is that first ever award that you received. So I want to say hi, Mike, and thanks for spending the time here. I know, obviously, you're busy.
Yeah,
So,
no big deal. It's summer. It's a little quiet. It's a little quieter.
So the 4-star green restaurants. From what I read online, it's the University of Connecticut and your dining operation that you're the executive director of, right? You received the first ever 4-star rating for green restaurants for all 8 of your dining operations. What does that mean? How big is that?
Well, to give you an idea, we started the process 13 years ago. So to get to this point, we started out and decided we were just going to try to go for one dining hall and just try to get a rating, right? Not really understanding the rating process. The state of California had legislatively passed a bill that said a dining hall has to have green certification on a college campus. And so in our industry, in the food service industry, things travel from the west to the east. It's how it's been. It's how it's been with recipes. It's how it's been with trends. And so my boss at the time said, we need to explore this. We need to try to do something on the East Coast that nobody's even talking about. And there's this thing called the Green Restaurant Association. I want you to start exploring it. So the first thing we did is we brought him in. We brought him to one dining hall. And we said, let's start rating this. And so the GRA looks at a variety of topics. They look at things from heating and cooling and ventilation. They're going to look at energy, water, waste, reusables, disposables, chemicals and pollution, the type of food. Where's that food coming from? They're going to look at your building and your furnishings. For example, if you're doing a renovation or you're building something new, are you repurposing furniture from that other facility? Are you repairing things on your furniture level instead of just throwing it away and starting over? They're going to look at education and transparency. So when we first started digging into this, we had a lot of challenges. We still had dining halls that were using trays. We had dish machines that were going through 350 gallons of water per hour. We had napkins on every dining room table. We had chemicals that weren't green. They basically had pollutants in them. Our local purchases 13 years ago was around 11%. And our vegan vegetarian was pretty strong, but we didn't have I would say, a terribly high percentage of recipes that focused on vegan and vegetarian. Our water faucets, our taps, you just turned them on. Nobody cared what the flow rate was on any of them. We didn't care what our rinse arm spray nozzles were pumping out at. We didn't have an answer for food waste. Food waste at that time, 13 years ago, was going straight to the dump, right through a landfill, right? And in Connecticut, it would go to Willimantic, then it would be shipped to Hartford, and it would be incinerated. We didn't have a lot of materials that we were considering as reusable. Our single-use items were not even pre-compostable. So, you had plastics that you were just giving students containers to take food out in. We had plastic straws. We had paper bags.
That's huge, Mike. Mike, with man. So you had mentioned that 6 years ago was when you accomplished just 1 star.
For
right?
everybody. 6 years ago, everybody got 1. By that time, all 8 operations had 1 star. Some had 3, but we had achieved 1 in every facility. And then it was like, how do you drill down on that to really pump this? Because now we got some work to do.
Now, when you say operation 1, that's 1 dining hall. You have 8 huge
8
dining halls. So let me just show you. I think I have some pictures here. So,
Sure.
A dining hall, typical like that.
So that's McCann pizza oven on the right there. That is our gluten-free section in Gelfenbein. That's Gelfenbein. So that's up in Towers where you used to live. Believe it or not. I think at the end of this, you're going to have like 2 or 3, one from Whitney. All right. So bottom
There
left
you go.
here, that's Putnam Dining Hall. That's a 700-seat facility. Bottom right-hand corner is Whitney Dining Hall. That's about 220 seats. Those are both recently, I say recently, within the last 10 years renovated.
So if I walked into the kitchen of Putnam, I think you said the 700-seat facility, what does that look like? I mean, is it like a house or
Now,
2 houses?
you know, it's industrial. It's going to be large kettles. It's going to have steamers. It's going to have convection ovens. It's going to have fryers. It's going to have flat tops, char broilers. You know,
And it's mostly buffet style, Mike?
it's a big back of the house operation. But a lot of our stuff, Adam, over the last 7 or 8 years, we've been bringing that operation out front, right? So we're not behind closed doors as much as we used to be. So a lot of these concepts now, our stations, we're doing stuff right in front of the customer. Students, customers in the restaurant, you want to see your food. You want to see what people are doing to it. And that's no different here. And so we've brought a lot of that out front now. We've got juice bars out front. We've got grill stations out front. We've got omelet stations, wok stations. I've got a kosher kitchen that you can see right in the windows. I've got 2 halal stations spread out around campus. So,
Wow.
We're pretty diverse from a menu standpoint, but also in terms of how we try to really bring this forward and let people see what we're doing.
Matt and I have spoken a lot. So Matt's an agile coach, right? And an agile project management, agile management. And he has been coaching me on the mindset and the struggle that it is to bring somebody's traditional or conventional mindset of getting something done by doing this and then doing this and then finishing that and then doing that. And that's how they've always done it. And that's how their companies have always done it. And then agile is very different, right? Now, you just expressed something that is got to be a massive, call it adversity to overcome. So you're going from a very traditional, 13 years ago, like you said, like we even had napkins on our tables, like God forbid, right? So like, what does that even mean? And so somebody's there, you got thousands of workers at your operation putting napkins there every single day. Can you express the journey of working with your team, like over a period of time to get them into a different kind of mindset to get towards this more sustainable, more, reusable kind of attitude?
So a lot of it is sharing your values and sort of your vision, right? Your vision has to be important to the team that you've hired, the people that you bring in. So we have a very simple mission statement, talks about it's basically feed everybody the best way that we possibly can. Diversity is included in that conversation. When it gets into the waste conversations, a lot like you're talking about, you've got history, you've got culture that says, wait a minute, we've always done it this way. Why would we change? So you have to be willing to go through this journey of explaining the whys and why it's important. So a lot of it's on the education side. So we start talking about the amount of food that is produced overproduced in the United States, and that we became an industrial food production country, and that completely changed the method of which things are packaged, preserved. And so we wanted to unpack a lot of that. We wanted to show them that we could do things from clean recipes. And you're hiring someone to be a chef, and you tell them to take something out of a box, it doesn't work. It doesn't work well in their brain. So you really want them to understand that piece. When it comes to waste, you have to show them. You have to show them the data, but it can't be punitive. And so one of the things we wanted to talk about, we wanted to sit here and talk about things like, how are we cutting peppers? How are we buying peppers? How are we buying cucumbers? What are we doing to those? And so you start weighing those things. You weigh the trim waste you don't want. But getting people to get wholesale all the way in takes time. It takes recognition. It takes thank yous. It takes going backwards and getting your whole team involved. So if you want to do a top-down approach, you can. So it starts with who's going to lead the organization. Then you go to your leadership team and you say, look, this is important to me. We need to sell this. But then it needs to be important to them too. I don't want you trying to sell something that's not important to you. Then the managers get involved. So this wasn't like Mike White went out and said, we're going to do this and I'm going to solve it for all of you. It's impossible. It's too big of an operation. So each dining hall manager had to buy in. Their assistant managers had to buy in. The napkin example, I'm going to share it because this is one of the things that kicked us in the right direction. So I decided that one of the first things I wanted to try to do was reduce the amount of napkins being taken. I'm saying taken because they weren't being used. So we had baskets in some dining halls with just a stack of napkins. We had dispensers on every table in some other dining halls. I would watch students take a half inch, sometimes a full inch of napkins right out of the basket, eat, take all those maybe use one or two, take all those napkins, put them on their plate, and then send them into the dish room. So I said, let's just try something. Let's get some dispensers, hang them near the silverware, get them off the tables, and let's see what happens. Now, I got killed in the local UConn Daily Campus newspaper for 2 months. I mean, but I knew I had to weather the PR hit.
You had like students complaining, like saying like, "Hey, why can't I get napkins anymore?"
White
Like,
is the most unsafe. I can't wipe the table in front of me. It's not sanitary. I have to get up and I have to walk over to where the napkins are hanging. We bought in one dining hall 6 million less napkins in the pilot year alone.
wow.
Okay, so that as soon as you
Did they write an article about that?
Yeah, they find, because you go back to them and you say, look, we ran the pilot for a year. I want to show you what this accomplished. And now all of a sudden, go ahead and speak out against that. And no one wants, right? So you make that run, all of a sudden staff sees like, wow, there is some serious problems going on around here with waste. And it's not necessarily my staff all the time that's wasting. It can be the students. And
Let's talk about that waste topic. The you had, when we spoke earlier this week, you gave me some fascinating stats about like what waste is, and you already mentioned the peppers. So for anyone listening out there, that if you haven't worked in the restaurant or hospitality industry, like in the kitchen, cooking, serving, it is not a glamorous type job, right? This is hard work, and but everyone knows what a green pepper looks like, right? So everyone knows that you don't eat the core of the green pepper, and the stem. And so that's the example that you gave me that gave me a little picture in my mind. So multiply that about what, 10 million, and you've got your operation about what happens to all that waste. And so um, do you have like a percentage of waste that you were at and what you are at now? Is that something?
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to drill down on the percentage. What I can tell you is that we track two types of waste. We track post-consumer and pre-consumer. So pre-consumer is what you just brought up, like that chef who's cutting a pepper, removing the seed pocket, removing the stem. And remember, when you bought that pepper, you bought the whole pepper. It's no different than any of you in a grocery store. You buy one cucumber, you buy the whole thing. You decide to peel it and throw away the peels. Well, you paid for something and threw it right in the trash. So we know that about 2 to 4%, depending on the week, we're going to lose in trim loss. So that's our pre-consumer loss, and that is a pretty standard percentage in the industry. Even if you look at McDonald's and fast food, they're going to have a waste component. On the post-consumer side, we're high, and we're high because we're an all-you-can-eat, all-you-can-take facility. So we spend a lot of time on education. But to give you an idea, we will lose close to 500,000 pounds of food will be sent through our dish rooms that is not consumed by students. And that's
like 4 Andre the Giants or something like that.
Each student typically wastes about 2 ounces of food per visit.
So all right, so 2 ounces.
Chicken breast, every kid's giving me back a half a chicken breast every time they come through. Wow. I bought a 4-ounce chicken breast. Every kid's turning half of it. We've done plate studies. We've done things to try to track what they're doing. It is actually at its highest point in September. So you've got a brand new influx of students coming this August 25th, 26th. They've never seen this much. Like high school, yeah. You don't have this kind of freedom to come in and consume and grab as much as you want. They're going to overtake in the beginning. And you're going to, the urban legends, freshman 15, all those things. Like some of that's real for some people, but that month of September is going to be a high consumption. And then it's going to start, we educate the heck out of them for that month. So we will see waste start to tail down.
Wow.
And
So
that's just how we play the game.
I'll tell you,
Well,
man.
think about this for a second. Think if you
Yeah.
have food waste and you apply a raw food cost to the weight. So if I said my raw plate cost is $3, and I'm telling you that I've got 500,000 pounds coming in, give that a multiplier, and now you're talking about over $1 million that's wasted in an operation. And every restaurant can do this. Any hotels can do this. There isn't a kitchen that can't look at their waste and be honest about it. And so that's why we try so hard to focus on education with the students and also work with our staff to make sure that they really do realize if I just cut a pepper, if I just hull it, 4 quick hulls, leave that top, and I leave a bunch of pepper on the top and throw it away, that's just going to add to that $1 million we just talked about.
I'll tell you the education part of it. You got, a couple thousand people working there, and they're doing it, and they're learning by doing it, and so you're taking that information and sharing it.
Yeah.
How does so I've tried composting. Composting has existed since ancient times, right? And I think that people have a certain view or an opinion of what that means. I tried it this past year. There's a wonderful company called Crown Town Composting here in Charlotte, and you pay a little fee. They give you a trash bag. You put your eggshells, and they said your coffee filters and the things that you can put in there, and they pick it up every 2 weeks. All right, and so I'm feeling like I'm doing something. But that you had said that you tried that at your operation, and it something, and then you started talking about skunks and raccoons, and that's no good for UConn. And then you tried something else, and it's related, and I'll let you share it about the partnership that you created related to biofuel and all that. So take us through that about waste and composting and kind of where that went.
All right, so I'll go pretty far back. I'll go back to the 90s for a minute when we had a pig farmer come to the dining halls and actually pick up food scraps. The problem with the pig farmer coming to the dining halls and picking up the food scraps is that the truck is usually covered in pig poo, and he smells like pig poo, and you have that now coming in the kitchen. So it really wasn't a sanitary situation. So we moved away from that. As we evolved into the mid 2000s, we started looking at other ways that we could sort of manage this. The first thing we tried was a product that it was a machine. It's called an e-correct. It low efficiency in terms of electric. It cooked the food waste. It was a dehydrator. So you put all your food waste into this machine at night. You set it for a 12-hour cycle. It basically blasted it at 400 plus degrees, and it turned wet, sloppy food waste into like a brown, powdery material. We then took that material, gave it to landscaping, and they could blend it with mulch and add it to the landscape around the campus. The problem is it still had an odor to it. It still smelled like food. So first problem was raccoons coming out. All of a sudden they're hanging out around the mulch, and it just wasn't a good situation on campus. The second thing we tried was to then send that product to the wastewater treatment facility, dump it into the tanks, allow the enzymes to interact with it. You were essentially feeding the enzymes, made them more active, help break the waste down in the tanks. Well, you needed special licensing for that. UConn didn't have it, so we really had to stop doing that. The third thing we tried is we bought another machine that basically turned food waste into gray water. So you added enzymes to the food waste. It cycled through a drum process, and it produced this gray water. Again, gray water gets pumped at UConn to the wastewater treatment facility or to the water reclaim facility. It was it was just sludgy. It was like pink and slimy around the gaskets and around the piping. Wasn't working really well. Then we reached out to the student, or not the student farm, but the university has a composting facility. We reached out to them to see if we could just dump it in there. And the problem with that is UConn has a very popular with the public composting facility, but they didn't want to introduce food to it because they didn't want to bring in rodents. Right now they were rodent free, and they're basically doing it with, clippings, horse shavings, manure, and they have this incredibly popular thing that they actually sell the compost to the public. So then finally we continued to explore options, and there was a UConn alum that was just getting into this venture called Quantum Biopower in Southington, Connecticut. And Quantum Biopower is essentially a massive anaerobic digester. and they're collecting not only food waste from Yukon, but they're getting pallets of milk and, things that grocery stores don't like to sell. Things that are cryovac, meats that are cryovac that have an expiration date that will probably last longer, but the public's not going to want them. A mispicked apple that's got a brown spot on it that somebody's not going to walk into Stop and Shop and want to buy, so they're just going to throw it away. And so those are all the kind of things that we're going to quantum. So we started a program with our garbage vendor that we're going to start separating the food waste in the back of the house into basically curbside pickup containers. They retrofitted a garbage truck that would pull up to our loading docks, grab those containers, dump them in, and they drive that now to Southington for us. Southington, Connecticut is using part of our food waste and all the other things that they gather, and they are scraping the methane off of that anaerobic digestion system, and they are powering a variety of local businesses in the town of Southington, Connecticut with that. They're also a full recycle program. So, yeah, it's amazing. So even if I sent them a pallet shrink wrapped of something that, was food that we had lost, maybe a cooler went down and I packed the whole pallet up, wrapped it, they would take it as is. They would recycle the pallet, recycle the shrink wrap, deal with the cardboard container, and then separate the food. Like, they do it all.
Wow.
It's an amazing facility. Their website gives you some really good photos and images of what they're doing. You're starting to see
quantum biopower.
And you're starting to see anaerobic digestion systems popping up a lot, especially in agriculture, because they're trying to deal with the same thing. Methane is the problem. So food and animal, especially cow manure, they're going to release methane, and methane into our environment is not, great for the environment, depending on which political leader you talk to. Is not great for our environment, and at the same time, it's a great energy source if they can capture it. So,
and they're powering some businesses in their town of Stonington with it. It's inconceivable for a regular person to see that. So invite others. Look them up, Quantum Biopower, and also Mike on. I'll give you a quick plug here, Mike. And I'll invite people to email me at adam@hospiamo.com if you want to get in contact with Mike. I've got all his stuff. We went to high school together, so I promise I won't share too much there. So the Mike, the thing that I want to, dude, you're massively impressive, right? And this is personally, knowing where I came from and knowing where you came from, right? We came from a very small town in Connecticut, right, near Rhode Island, Pawcatuck and Stonington, and we're just regular people, right? And so you're speaking like a scientist, though. Okay, you're speaking like a doctor, and you did not go to school to become a doctor or to become a scientist. You actually got your master's in industrial and organizational psychology. Is that right?
Yep.
So all of these things that you're talking about, particularly, leading a large team, a massive organization, all these meals and biofuel, and even using the word quantum, that makes me think of quantum leap. And so that's I don't know if there's a doctorate program for that, but I wish there was. So you have what did you learn that helped you accomplish these things, over this period of time, getting things done, particularly with industrial and organizational psych? And how does that relate to emotional intelligence, which you've mentioned, which is important to you, and self-awareness? So you said that was impactful for you earlier in your career to go that route.
When you decide that you're going to go into managing people, right? So you've got to figure out how you work in that world. You can be sort of this authoritarian. You can, and I know that DISC assessments are, controlling, organized, all this stuff that sort of sits out there. There's other assessments that you can sort of do that are for self-improvement purposes or for self-awareness. When I got involved in restaurants, I was 15 years old, and there was something about the environment, the energy, the kitchen that I just gravitated to. Every job I've basically ever had since 15 years old involved food service. I certainly didn't think when I came to UConn that I would finish that 4-year degree in economics and political science and be like, I'm going to stay with the Department of Dining Services. But I liked being around people. I liked interacting with them. I liked learning about them. I liked hearing about their personal, about their families, about the things that they were doing on their off days. I just enjoyed those conversations. People ask me, what's your favorite memory of this department, or if you could go back and manage a dining hall? Before Whitney Dining Hall got renovated, one of my favorite things to do was sit downstairs and after meal service with the head chef with a cup of coffee, watching it snow out the windows. And it was peaceful. It was tranquil. It was the only dining hall where the kitchen was downstairs and the food had to go up a dumbwaiter to get upstairs. So you had this like tranquil space where you could just chill out and really sort of enjoy what you just did. As I thought about progressing in the department or sort of moving ahead in the industry, I looked at different opportunities when it came to another degree. I looked at public administration. Everybody was talking, we got to have an MBA. And I stumbled across, actually through a former classmate of ours, Jessica Main, who was working for the University of New Haven at the time. I went to an open house. I went to an open house at Conn College, and she started talking to me about this IO Psych thing, and realizing, through that brief presentation about how much was within that program that had to do with people. So IO Psych, for those that don't know, it's the non-clinical side of psychology, right? So it's going to look at how you handle things like emotion, how you process your own emotion, and emotional intelligence. When I got this degree 13 years ago, people are like, what the heck, emotional intelligence? Like, what is that? Now, I challenge you, go somewhere where they're not talking about it in sort of the management ranks, because it's a really a common thing that a lot of people have it. I don't think I knew whether I had it or didn't have it, but I went through a program. I took one test. It was called the Mesquite. And the Mesquite was this thing where they'd show you these pictures and it would scale out. Like, how does this do you strongly agree that this is a beautiful place? Do you disagree? And I went through all this and I'm like, yeah, like it's either yes or no to me. That was followed up with a 30-minute evaluation from the PhD teacher. And I couldn't get enough. I could have sat there and talked about this for hours. That was the moment I realized that I did not process emotion. I wasn't proud of the way that I was processing emotion. I'll give you an example. If I was doing your evaluation and you were having a hard time with the content and didn't, I'm telling you all these things I observed, and as an individual, you don't agree with me, and you start crying. I would just plow through that eval. I wouldn't pause, ask you if you're all right. I just try to get to the end because I want to get out of that situation as quickly as I could. But what I realized, when you go through a sort of eye-opening experience about who you are, I learned a lot about myself. That's what I was doing. I was taking emotion. I was perceiving it. I was seeing it immediately, but I had a way to get around it, as opposed to, let me take a minute here and figure out why that's impacting you, which is now impacting me, which is now impacting the operation. And how do we come to a place where you feel better about what you're experiencing? You also see my side of the issue. And at the end of the day, we're back on the same team. And I think that's
what you just described was the beauty that is out there. Like you said, that you don't even know that you're doing it, and you also said, let's just take a minute. I agree. I think it probably only takes a minute.
Mhm.
Let's just take a break for 1 minute and think about what we want to get from this conversation and who you are. I'll give a plug because it's a big part of our research too, and that's to Daniel Goleman. So I think he's known as like the father of emotional intelligence. He has an amazing book. It's called Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. I was like almost 30 years ago that he wrote that. And self-awareness, there's 5 domains of emotional intelligence. It's self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. Okay, so each one has their own, deep section there. That was what you just said there, Mike. I'm going to try to figure out how to clip that and put it into a short video, because I think that's beautiful. And that's what a lot of people see, that when they're doing those type of things. And so good for you and good for your team. Do you have any mentors out there that like kind of like lifted you up or helped you out that maybe unexpectedly or throughout your life? You know, non-family, non-friends, not the people that we always expect to lean
Yeah.
on, but
So I'm gonna do a couple. The first I'm gonna start with he's no longer with us. His name was Mike Beal. Mike Beal was a manager of Putnam Dining Hall back in the day, and I was just a student. I was actually the student coordinator for the whole program. And I wasn't putting in my best effort. Let's just put it that way. I won't get into everything I was doing, but I was not putting in my best effort. He pulled me aside one day and basically sat me in the office, and he was not afraid to tell me what I was doing to my own career, um, because I was doing really well as a student worker. I climbed the ranks of that as well, but I was taking advantage of that position on my own. And Mike probably saved me, honestly, from my own nonsense at that age, and
did
really
you know
got
that
me
was
thinking.
happening in the moment, or are you looking back and
Oh
realizing that?
no,
What did that feel like when that was happening?
I did not want to be a part of that conversation because I had to admit what I was doing. I wasn't doing anything illegal. Don't get me wrong. I just was
Yeah.
not putting in the effort that was needed in the role. I was expected to be a leader in that role. I was not happy about being in that conversation, but I was very, even looking back now, I think that I respected that because he was willing to do something about it instead of ignore it. Whether that was about me personally or he would have done that for anybody, I don't care. That doesn't matter. But he was willing and he had the confidence to address the issue. A lot of other people, along the way, they don't like to do those things. They don't like to confront difficult conversations. And
That's
he
deep.
probably
That's very true and deep. You know, he was
yeah,
possibly naturally, possibly he was trained to do that, you know, but either way, you know, you're talking to about him almost 30 years
yeah,
from now. That's pretty amazing. You
yeah. The other
anyone
people, I mean, there's other people like Dennis Pierce, who was the executive director before me. He's retired, but Dennis taught me a lot about this industry, about networking, about holding yourself accountable and holding your team accountable and making sure that you're professional in everything that you do. Dennis was a visionary in the food service industry. UConn's a part of NACUFS, which is the National Association of College and University Food Service. Dennis has won awards in that, not only for our institution but for himself personally.
that's this here, right?
Yeah, so
So
NACUFS is
you
one of the awards that was a nutrition award for a vegan crab cake. If you go
a
back
vegan
one
crab cake?
picture, vegan crab cakes, yeah. Go back.
Crabs aren't vegan, are they?
No,
You had
you
to
wouldn't know.
improvise.
You would not know. You would not know.
Wow,
The
cool.
recipe's good.
Well,
Tracy
you won an
Roy,
award.
Tracy Roy,
Congratulations.
Tracy Roy, who was in the picture before that. Tracy's been an advisor, someone who's really uh, she's got a great vision for what we do here at UConn, but she also is not someone who's afraid to sit down and tell me like, "Hey, you need to prioritize this. I need you to focus on this. We need to get an answer on this." And so, in her own way, she's done a tremendous amount for my career, my development as not only a manager back in the day. I was an assistant manager working for her at one time, but she taught me an awful lot about what it was like to be a manager at UConn, and it's a different food service operation than restaurants, obviously, but really made sure I was detail oriented and my orders were accurate and those kind of things. And the last one, listen, I know you say this isn't supposed to be about family and friends, but I would not be where I am today without Jill, my wife, who's been in my corner, my ringleader the entire time. She's been supportive. I told Adam the story. I started working for dining in 1994 because we had just started dating and I was hanging out in her room too much. And she's like, you gotta find something else to do. And so my infinite wisdom was I went downstairs in her dorm and got a job washing dishes with dining services. So had it not even been for that moment, as she tells me, I might not even be working here to this day. So, but you can't, I don't succeed on my own. I succeed because she's been in my corner, my number one fan, and is not afraid to call me out on my BS. So
That is more beauty. So shout out to Jill. And also to Jessica Main, to
Yeah.
two other Stonington graduates,
Yeah.
and including my brother, who was a senior that year that picture was taken of you and me, and former valedictorian, right, bro? So what's it like? What's it like talking to Mike and me that are we were not valedictorians?
Oh God, no.
Um,
That was Pete
uh,
Jackson and Jennifer Banks.
and Jennifer Banks. That's right. Yeah, Jennifer Banks was, and Jennifer Crowley. Yep, they were actually they probably would never know, but how much I looked up to them um, for um, doing that well and taking their student and education so seriously. I still have
Mm.
I probably would call it jealous back then, maybe if that's the right word. But I look back now, and they, without knowing it, in high school, people that live a life of high integrity and things like that is more impactful than anything else. And um, we can wrap up here. I think that we got to everything that I had on my list here. Mike, is there anything else that we forgot? Anything that you wanted to promote? Anything that you have going on that you wanted to invite people to do besides fall in love at UConn and have a beautiful
Um,
family?
I'm gonna do one plug. Back in March, we opened our first food pantry in an effort to address food insecurity. And so I'm not going to plug ours. I'm not going to ask you to go to the foundation website and donate. But what I would tell you is that food insecurity is a real challenge across this country. And there are food pantries in all of your local neighborhoods. And whether you have a moment to just volunteer or donate or drop off those things that you might consider throwing away, but take a moment, find a food pantry in your area, and that would be something that I would put on everybody, because food insecurity is a real problem in this country. I think that I know where my next meal is coming from. I don't have to worry about those things, but you can't judge the person next to you to understand exactly what they're going through. And listen, you build relationships over a plate. You build your relationships at the food table. That's what's amazing about our world. And if you don't have that opportunity to eat, you're not going to be successful in anything you do. So if you could do anything after this, you do anything for me, it's go to your local food pantry, drop something off.
I'm going to learn more about what you call food insecurity. I've not even heard it identified like that before. We all know income security, job security, things like that. And how you say food insecurity is not knowing where your next meal might come from, right? Is that, well, type into Google food pantry near me, probably would be the best place to go. Um, Man, Mike, congratulations on everything that you do and your entire team of people and all these mentors that helped you. And hello to your wife Jill, and thanks for supporting Mike. And um, and also to everyone else that was mentioned here. So um, uh, uh, my brother Matt is right there. You can reach him at agilegamechangers.com or Matt at agilegamechangers.com, right? You can reach me at Adam at hospiamo.com or hospiamo.com. Mike, I will forward every inquiry directly over to you. I will screen them because I get some crazies
Okay,
sometimes, but
that's fine.
but we are talking about some really just thank you so much for you educated. I got a bunch of notes. You educated me on that, and you work for an educational system at UConn, and I think it's beautiful what you're doing, and I'm just personally excited to spend this time with you, and hope to see you again soon.
No, thank you so much. This is awesome. I watched the first one of these. I was intrigued by it. Getting an opportunity to do this, I was not expecting. So I appreciate the shout out. And if you're in the area, stop by. I'll give you a tour. Maybe take you to lunch.
You got to avoid the skunks and raccoons, right?
Yeah, we're good there. We'll be fine there.
We're good there. Okay. All right, man. Thank you, Matt. We'll finish up, and thank you for everyone for watching, our millions of viewers in the world and globally. And we will see you again next Thursday at 3:00. We have a mystery guest that everyone will be excited to hear about. And thank you, everybody, and bye. Love you. Have a great day. Thank you.